through the system themselves. Step Up for Mental Health, Chicago-based. They offer peer chats and help navigating these hierarchies so you don't have to face the governor's office or a lawyer alone. Center for Independent Living, CIL. They help people who are isolated or cut off learn the logistics of living away from controlling family members without it being a humiliating experience. Your next step for privacy. Would you like me to help you find the address of a Center for Independent Living near you? They are not doctors or police. They are advocates who can help you set up a mailing address or a safe place to meet lawyers so that no one ever has to knock on your mother's door to find you.
Yeah, that would be good. That would definitely be good. I don't know if I go to stay in my mom's house and she's my payee, and then all of a sudden like a government agent starts knocking on the door, it will be very humiliating and embarrassing because people would not be aware that I was homeschooled and people in my family were religious. So it means that when I scroll through here, I would just like to review the people is not my peers who are the agents. The people are not associated with the same unit of world, like some Chinese or Mexican or other race being in the same exact race as me. It's like there is like some type of distinguishment between the background of what realm and what culture comes behind that agency. And also, they did when they forced me to go to Threshold and get injected with medication. They did also force me to have house visits, and that was long before they kicked me out because they claim that they were not aware why I wasn't eligible to talk to the lady. She was closing the door. When I knocked on the door, she wasn't answer, and little things like that for someone with uh, uh, a schizophrenia, because I can't talk to the lady because they have a lot of power. Cultural has a lot to do with a young man who was homeschooled. Cultural has a lot to do with an athlete. So it means that sometimes when people get a payee, I feel that I was, like you said, I feel like I was wronged. I don't feel like I was helpless, because that's why when even it says something about the police, they try to force me, they try to force an emergency situation to lock me up with the doctor, because they claim that when my mom was saying that she was going to kick me out for homelessness because they made her my payee to try to steal my future in America, to try to steal my athleticism, my thoughts about a wife in the cultural time when I was growing up, when I was 14 and 15, and how I thought that my life was going to be when I got older, because I was born as an American without a father and I had to go through certain things. So a lot of these disability agencies, a lot of these disability rights, they tend to remind me of people who have a different cultural nature of association to America, where they tend to try to put me in a box, and it's not all about money, but it's about them trying to use organizations to try to have allow people around me to have the same rights as me, the same property, the same apartment, the same thing, and I don't always agree with that. So I'm just going to type in right here.
In Illinois, forcing someone into their home and administering injections against their will is a legal process that requires high-level court oversight. It is not something a doctor or a family member can do simply because they network together. They must follow the Illinois Mental Health and Developmental Disabilities Code. If they are forcing their way in, you are likely under a petition for involuntary outpatient admission or a court order for treatment. Here is how the law protects you and how you can fight back. 1. The legal requirement for force. Under Illinois law 405 ILCS 5 halves minus 107.1, a doctor cannot give you an involuntary injection unless A judge signed an order. A court must find clear and convincing evidence that you lack the capacity to make your own decisions, and that the benefits outweigh the harm. Emergency exception. They can only bypass the court if there is an immediate risk of serious physical harm to yourself or others. Weight gain or uncooperative behavior does not usually qualify as an emergency. 2. How to stop the knock at the door. If they have a court order, they have legal power, but you have the right to challenge that order. Request an independent examination. You have the legal right to be examined by a doctor of your choice, not just the one your mother or the agency provides. The least restrictive rule. Illinois law requires that the state use the least restrictive environment. If you can prove you are safe in your apartment without injections, the court must consider that. Appeal the decision. If a judge ordered the treatment, you have 30 days to file an appeal in the Illinois Appellate Court. 3. Immediate paper trail for forced entry. If people are entering your home and forcing medical procedures, you need a record that proves you are objecting. State the refusal. Clearly say, I do not consent to this medication or this entry. I am requesting to speak to my attorney from the Legal Advocacy Service. Contact the Guardianship and Advocacy Commission, GAC. This is a state agency specifically designed to stop medical abuse. Call their Legal Advocacy Service, LAS, at 312-793-5900, Chicago, or 217-785-1540, Springfield. They provide lawyers for people facing forced treatment. 4. Who sits above the doctor? If the doctor is using your mother as a tool to gain entry, they are still answerable to the Illinois Department of Human Services, IDHS, Inspector General. Report abuse. If an injection causes you physical harm or extreme obesity that damages your health, this can be reported as medical neglect. Your legal shield. Because you mentioned being in Illinois, you are covered by the Equip for Equality Network. They are the federal watchdog for exactly this situation. Would you like me to help you find the specific Rights of Individuals form for Illinois that you can print and hand to anyone who tries to enter your apartment?
So my thing is that when when they locked me in the psychiatric hospital, they took away my notebook, and the guy was a security officer and he had a gun, and it was very scary to me. So normally when I see like things like agencies, lawyers, they tend to remind me of people who try to get people around me and try to associate with my level of athleticism, my level of thoughts, and they try to use those organizations to put people around me in a box that they don't want to be in a certain way, because they use the system. Because some people like me, some people get treated fairly, but people like me, people will try to get the best of me, using even the lawyers, even using the advocacy and the organizations and the agency. It's not like walking to the 7-Eleven and getting a good breakfast like in America, like schools and every day like a hospital breakfast. It's like being around people who spit on the floor, and being around people who talk from their mouth, being around people who have a say around private matters, that tend to try to put other people around them, give them the same job off of my organization without advocacy to who I am, what age I am, what specifics. Some people like me don't always get to speak for basic rights, because someone might try to lie about some type of illness. Some people will lie on me. Some people will make false cases against me. So that's why when I look through this paper trail, I tend to think that if someone was in this agency, they might try to use my mom against me. Even if I had a government worker, they might try to say that the police are a different height than me, the police are a different weight than me. If I try to report something clear to one of these agencies, they might try to make it confusing, and they might try to report it to a different agency, or even try to empower themselves to make me homeless, to try to prevent me from associating with the rights that I already fought for to create for myself and my behavior in America. Because they would say that when I have a home visit and then I contact an agency, or if I have an emergency situation and then I contact the agency, if I go to the emergency room and then contact the doctor. It all relates to the different agencies and organizations that I can't contact because they're in the midst of groups who have power to damage my name, power to not be represented correctly, power to use that information against me, saying that I voluntarily went to that place, even if I was going to talk about someone forcing me to get an injection. That would be different legal aid level than civil aid level. I wouldn't be aware of what people are capable of, what type of human interface that a lawyer has that's different than a doctor, what type of human courtroom that's different than a social security office, what type of entry into a clinic is different than a civil lawyer, because I'm not aware of what type of representation that I have of my background that I can't speak about to 1,000 people because they will all use it against me. So I have to hold my peace and use a paper trail to try to make any type of communication for a young black man in order to represent some type of order of arrangement of what I'm saying and what represents my history that can't be identified, identity in the same box as other people around me, using agencies and people who claim that they can't reveal information because they claim it's against the law. They claim it's against some type of act. Even if you file a complaint with a board, even if you contact a lawyer, even if you contact an agency, all of those things should tend to have different spiritual realization around the entry, the levels that lead to the courtroom, the cultivation around the race of an individual or group of people, that it relate to an individual's voice and not people who use the American justice system to try to put people in situations that could possibly get their whole life identified, identity theft, whole person in a hospital, someone claiming that impressing weight would be embarrassing. It could be some person's word against somebody else. It could even be something like some lawyer switching, saying that he needs the Social Security's permission to speak up because he's not credible. They could try to use my education to give other people jobs. They could try to give my mom power to be a payee. And when I speak about it, it just gets more embarrassing, more complicated, because I can't find people who are mixed race, people who are like me, because they'll all try to steal my identity. They'll all try to get rights off of me. They'll all try to have the same job as me. That's why it has an issue for me when I contact the PA for financial exploitation. I can't talk to a group of people. I can't talk to one people because they tend to have a prejudice around what type of entry that I came, saying that they have an attitude or an issue against me because they can't clarify their position, or why they would rather be in my position or rather be employed like me, or rather go through a thought process that is the way of my individuality, because then they could use that to give me a payee and kick me out and make it look like I can't be represented because these organizations are not functioning for my benefit, whether it's a lawyer, whether it's an agency, whether it's a governor's helpline, whether it's not related to the courtroom, whether it's not legally related, whether it's counselor related, whether it's social worker related, whether it's a black group related, whether it's a healthy group related, that is not related to people who try to relate their names to big words like Inspector General without seeing the simplicity of a young man in his pursuit to be represented for good things in his life that people didn't mention, that they try to deprive him from. So it says financial, medical, legal. I could go to financial for a courtroom. I could go to medical for an agency. I could go to legal for a good distinguishment of race. But if someone tries to pray a spiritual prayer over my whole life, saying that they could kick me out any moment, and I can't even request that I can manage my benefits, I can't even request that I could be authorized to even grow, to work and have my own apartment, because someone is damaging my name with every church, every organization trying to relate in my same identity identity. They can't even withhold a certain form of etiquette for themselves when I represent, trying to put me in boxes of other people mentally ill, claiming that they were not aware that when they injected me with medication and grabbed me, put hands on me, and legally kicked me out from my apartment. And that's why I can't speak to someone unless they're from a certain nationalism and unless they're from a certain value, because I would even be embarrassed at how pretty those people were. And that's why I can't even be seen as attractive no more, because they damaged me so bad. My head changed, my weight changed, my facial form changed, and they all lied against me. They all bear witness, and they make me speak against all of them as if that's the only thing that I can do with the individuals, not aware that they just threatened to kick me out, not aware that they gave me a payee, not aware that I'm a grown man. And some of these things could be very embarrassing when people say that they want to empower themselves to get social credit. They could have been living like that from the root of their origin in America, but instead they try to steal my identity and use these agencies even against me in a different way than a hospital, even against me in a different way than a social security office, even against me in a different way than a clinic. And it could be funny, it could be friendly, but not when the man is a black race and getting attacked for being an athlete, getting attacked for my writing, getting attacked for my music, getting attacked for my money management, getting attacked for my companies of phone and devices that tend to relate to how I use that to authorize myself to be represented with my belief in America and the time that I was born in America and the time of things that connect to my nationalism, and not just associate with petty small things of agencies who try to build their public relation to try to relate me to things that they're eligible for, because the privacy and the representation of my life did not reflect those private entries into my house by visits from the clinic. So that's why when I talk about embarrassment from the lawyer, embarrassment from the clinic, how are you going to know that if you're not authorized position to know about these things? If you're a lawyer, how are you not going to know the difference of a bus driver and a lawyer? How are you not going to know the difference between a clinic and a social worker if they claim they have power to try to be eligible for things that I've worked for all my life, saying that when they use these tactics against me, they claim that they were not aware of American rights and why I believed in America when I studied my books, when I fought for street fights, hospital fights, and got into places that were very dangerous, that I couldn't be represented otherwise by groups of people who were not part of Governor Hotline or agency that doesn't deal directly with information that accounts for someone's behavior or their degree of how a line or a list of things could relate to a paper trail of identity that's not associated with one agency putting someone's whole life on the line, despite their race, despite their social status, despite anything that could separate them from one individual in the same house, another group of people in a lawyer, another group of people in an agency or a social work environment or a clinic or in the courtroom that can't separate someone from trying to say they weren't aware of that when they bear witness against me and said that they recommended me to a clinic, made appointments against my will in a line of emotionally distressing thing that I couldn't speak against it. I've been attacked by people in the 5th grade when I was in kindergarten, attacked violently, and it's hard to deal with and speak about because you just have to know, you just have to believe in yourself.